Shivaya. So, you probably often heard from some of the teachings that we give at Anuttara this phrase, keep this sacred at the center. And of course, we're not speaking here physically, although maybe physically, even sometimes some temples in India, the sacred murti is in the center of the mandir, the temple. But we're speaking metaphorically. And so, metaphorically speaking, what do we mean by this? And how can we bring the sacred at the center?
Yeah, I think when you make your altar at home, often that which you revere the most is placed at the center of the altar. So this is also where this metaphor comes from, or like Bhairav was saying in the mandir, the deity which is most revered within that temple will be at the center, will be in the middle of the temple. And this is a very unique teaching, I think, as well to Tantra, because many other spiritual traditions might tell you that you always need to keep your Ishta Devata, or your chosen deity, at the center of your life, which isn't necessarily not true in Tantra, but just that in Tantra, there isn't this emphasis on the transcendent aspect of our spiritual path. There can be a component of this within the path of Tantra, but it's not just about getting to the top of the mountain. There's actually this really important part of Tantra where we kind of come down off the mountain, out of our cave, out of our retreat, our sadhana practice, and try to bring that which we've recognized in our sadhana into the world. And so when we say keep the sacred at the center, that doesn't just mean, make your sadhana, wonderful if you can, but make your sadhana the most important thing in your life, or make your guru the most important thing in your life. If you can do this, wonderful. But also, if you're living in the world, I'm willing to bet that there's going to be a natural flux and flow as to what you are putting at the center of your altar.
Because part of living in the world is in following through with your responsibilities. As a householder, we have to meet these responsibilities head on. So, and this is what Dharma is. A lot of people talk about Dharma as purpose, but here, Dharma is more related to actually what your responsibilities are in the world. Family, or is it your job? Do you have your responsibilities to your job as being a householder, et cetera, et cetera? So yeah, this is very important.
So in some ways, we could say, metaphorically, the deity that you're putting at the center of your altar is maybe shifting from time to time, depending on the phase of life, the day of the week, the hour of the day. It's going to shift. And what's unique to Tantra is we're saying, you can put your career at the center, you can put your child at the center, your lover at the center, money at the center, and that's not necessarily wrong. The ignorance, maybe we'll say, comes in forgetting that job, that lover, that child, whatever it might be that you put at the center, is sacred, right? So we can look at our altar, recognize, okay, right now my child is the center of my world. It is, I have to feed them, I have to bathe them, I have to get them into bed. They are the most important thing in my life. They're at the center of the altar. But as they have their tantrum, as they freak out, we might forget how sacred they truly are, and we move into this place of kind of maybe only seeing the material, only seeing the manifest, only seeing the mind, I guess, in some ways. So as I was saying, keeping the sacred at the center isn't just about keeping your guru at the center or your sadhana at the center. These things, I think, should always be on the altar. They should at least be in the periphery. But life is going to call us into duty, into action in different ways. And so then the practice becomes, can I at this moment be focused on my career and be in the heat of this fast-paced environment, in the stress potentially that might come of deadlines and time frames, and yet still recognize that this is all part of a divine flow, that there's something sacred that I can even intentionally impregnate into every action I do, regardless of what it is I'm doing.
And so why can't all these other things be sacred? This is what I think a lot of traditions outside of Tantra fail to realize, is that everything around us is sacred. And so, therefore, all of these things, these duties, the job you have, and everything else, that's all sacred. So then, keep the sacred at the center. So if they're all sacred, then actually our uh, our calling into action and moving through the world is also part of that sacred journey.
But it's so often as well that I hear people say, I wish I could see the sacred in everything, or I'm trying to see the sacred in everything. And I guess that's something I want to say to that specifically is it's not, to be able to recognize the divine within everything is not something that we necessarily do. It's a grace that comes. Om Namah Shivaya. These are the 5 faces of Shiva. Shiva as the divine aspect that permeates all of existence, both the manifest and the unmanifest. And so Shiva is the creator of life, the preserver of life, the destroyer of life, the revealer of true life, of truth itself, and also ignorance. So Shiva, or the divine play of life, we could even say, is spontaneously deciding when it will reveal itself to you and when it won't. And so when we're pushing ourselves into life trying to see the divine in everything, you're already in ignorance, believing that there's an I here that can somehow make this happen, this revelation happen, this realization, this way of seeing and moving in the world happen. There's nothing I can necessarily do to make it happen. However, there are particular, like I say this, and yet there are these 3 pillars in traditional Tantra that are considered to be paramount if we want to have that revelation aspect of Shiva, if we want to see the divine in everything, if we want to keep the sacred at the center, then at the very least, these 3 pillars should be, like I say, on the periphery of our metaphoric altar.
Mm-hmm. So we have sangha, which is community, uh, the spiritual the people whom we surround ourselves with, and the people who we surround ourselves with is a choice, actually. Family, not really, but our community and the people we hang out with, we definitely have a choice with this, we could argue. The second one would be guru, and the teacher, and the teachings that come from the teacher, and this is also really important, to be remembering these teachings and to be also following through with the various practices that are recommended to us for stepping into that. And the third one,
Which is the third one?
which is
the various practices.
Oh, the practices.
Right.
Okay.
Sadhana.
There we go. Yeah. Sadhana. So yeah, of course.
Sangha, sadhana, guru.
The Sangha, sadhana, guru.
And I just want to also say, like, there might be some of you out there who are saying, well, I don't have a guru, or like I have a local yoga teacher, but the guru doesn't necessarily have to be found in the physical body. We can be finding the guru through reading scripture, through deep contemplation, and of course in sadhana as well. Sangha, sadhana, guru, these things will kind of blend together. I think I'll just also say, like, just to give direct example in my own life, My son, I have a child, a toddler, and very much family life, the family life and service, we could say, had really started to take up a good space within my altar, and I had shifted into a place of forgetting the sacred, of of maybe even resisting my experience in some ways, which is often for myself an indication of not being in alignment with truth. And I ended up visiting a friend, someone who I'd only just met. And they were in such alignment with having the sacred at the center of their own altar that just in the short few hours that I spent with them, they brought me back to a total remembering of myself, and a remembering that lasted weeks after that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, this is my own personal experience just recently of how important sangha is. And this isn't somebody that I necessarily have the same guru with or the same practices with, but they had such dedication to their own sadhana and to their own spiritual practice and journey that just being in their presence naturally brought me back into that resonance and that remembrance. And I think in a big way that's what we're trying to emphasize here, is the importance of keeping those pillars on your altar, for they bring you into a resonance that then brings the remembrance of the sacred, the remembrance of the truth that exists behind the manifest and the material world.
Mm-hmm. And through, moving through the world like this, we really start to feel closer to the sacred. We start to actually even understand the sacred in a much different way, and a very grounded way as well. Not that the divine is just in some unicorn world in the clouds, but it's very grounded into our everyday. So
yeah, I think one last thing that I want to bring forward here is when we keep the sacred at the center, when we remember ourselves or the truth which exists behind and within all things, then naturally our life is in this kind of divine flow. Everything moves forward with this resonance. There's a resonance within our family, there's a resonance within our community, there's a resonance within the work that we do, there's a resonance everywhere we go. And there's more that I have to say about that, but maybe we'll talk about it another time. But for now, keep the sacred at the center.
mm-hmm.
And we do that through remembering the divine within all things. And how do we remember the divine within all things when we can so easily be swayed by the ignorance of the world? Well, we make sure that sangha, sadhana, and guru are always somewhere on that altar. If not at the center, then somewhere.